to our Yom HaShoah commemoration and lecture. I want to wish everybody a good afternoon, and I'm so glad you all are here, and I'm sure more will be joining us. We gather here on Yom HaShoah to remember and to be together in that remembering. In a few moments, we'll begin with a brief service. We will light candles, we will recite prayers, and we will mark this night in the language and rituals that our tradition gives us. There are no words that can fully hold what we are remembering. Auschwitz demands silence. But we begin as Jews have always begun, with small acts of light, with ancient words, and with presence. And from there, we will move into music. Music that was written, sung, and carried in the most difficult of circumstances, not as a performance, but as an expression of longing, of faith, of resistance, of humanity. This afternoon is not about explaining. It is about making space for memory, for reflection, and for whatever that might stir in each of us. So I invite you now to enter this service with quiet attention and with an open heart. And you can find our prayers and readings in the very large blue Siddur. It's marked with a yellow bookmark for the Yom HaShoah section. We're going to begin on page 521. Page 521. I know there were some more books here on the side and in the front. And people can also share. So let's read this opening reading together. Page 521. We begin with silence, the silence of death, the silence after destruction. There are times when songs falter, when darkness fills life, when martyrdom becomes a constellation of faith against the unrelieved black of space about us. There are no words to reach beyond the edge of night, no messenger to tell the full tale. There is only silence, the silence of Job, the silence of 6 million, the silence of memory. Let us remember them as we link our silences. I'd like to share a poem by poet Paul Janesco. He read about each of the children who had been in Terezin and researched them and researched their lives. And for each of them, he wrote a poem. And this is called Josephine Rabsky, 10890. That was her number. My friends are lost. Sarah wanted to marry a rich doctor who would buy her flowers and chocolates and otherwise pamper her shamelessly until her dying day. Transport 5712. Zofia and I slept outside whenever it was allowed, holding hands, counting stars until we fell asleep. Transport 2174. Anna, always serious, gave me the rag doll her mama had made. You need it, she said. I'm leaving. Transport 1753. Olga stopped eating the day after her parents died of typhus. Just stopped and became a sacred sack of sticks that I bore in my arms to the hearse. Camilla with emerald eyes, so happy she wasn't going to be separated from her parents. Transport 6714. Dorcas adored her uncle, followed him from a 4th-floor window to the cobbled courtyard. Jolanta left in winter. I watched her footprints fill with snow. Transport 1175. I am lost. I will leave my rag doll. Transport 9177. We light our candles by passing on the light of memory and hope from one to another. Let us honor those whose lights were put out, whose dreams, hopes, and lives were snuffed out before their time. I would like to invite Bonnie and Michael Berkowitz for the first candle. We're going to start on this side. Why don't you light first and then read? Yeah.
We light a candle for the 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazi regime and its collaborators. We remember that the Holocaust was a unique genocide, specifically targeted at the total annihilation of the Jewish people. While we acknowledge the millions of others who perished, political opponents, homosexuals, Roma, and Jehovah's Witnesses, we recognize that the final solution was an ideological project designed to hunt down and destroy every single Jew.
Would like to call up Caroline Lipson for the second candle. You have to hold it there a while. There we go. You can turn around.
We light a candle for the 1.5 million children who perished, never having had the opportunity to live their lives.
I'd like to call for our third candle, Shirley Gilad. Just pull, yeah. Here we go.
We light a candle for the Jewish partisans, the brave souls who refused to submit to annihilation and forged a history of resistance in the forest and ghettos. We honor those who became fighters, wielding their courage and their weapons as a scroll of fire against the darkness.
Like to call up for our fourth candle, Carrie Boone, Watauga High School social studies teacher who teaches the Holocaust to children in the county. Keep going. Okay, here we go.
We light a candle for those who stood upright, for the righteous Gentiles who risked and even gave their lives to help their fellow human beings.
Thank you. Like to call up for our fifth candle, Dr. Davis Hankins, Director of the Center for Judaic, Holocaust, and Peace Studies.
We light a candle for the rabbis, teachers, and scholars who were murdered, mourning the profound and irreplaceable loss to Jewish intellectual and spiritual life. We remember the destruction of the vast network, halakhic deciders and judges, and the silencing of the holy men and women who served their community.
Thank you. For our sixth candle, I'd like to call up Claire Turner, a second-generation survivor. Okay. Just pull, yeah. Just pull it. Here we go.
we light a candle for those who still live under the yoke of oppression, where the threat of genocide is real and ever present.
We light our candles by passing the light of memory and hope from one to another. Let us honor those whose lights were put out, whose dreams, hopes, and lives were ended before their time. May these flames endure as an eternal tribute to the millions lost, ensuring their presence is ever with us. Let the light they kindled in the world never truly fade, and may their memories be for a blessing. And let us all say, Amen. We continue on page 525. In the presence of eyes which witnessed the slaughter, which saw the oppression the heart could not bear, and as witnessed the heart that once taught compassion, until the days came to pass that crushed human feeling, I have taken an oath to remember it all, to remember, not once to forget. Forget not one thing to the last generation when degradation shall cease, to the last, to its ending, when the rod of instruction shall have come to conclusion. An oath, not in vain passed over the night of terror. An oath, no morning shall see me at flesh pots again. An oath, lest from this we learned nothing. And we rise for El Malay on page 530. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamramim, Hamtsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei, HaShekhinah, Bemalot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezora Harakia, Mazirim, Het Nishmot, Shisha Milyon Achinu V'Achiotenu, Shenehegu Al Kiddush Hashem, Ba'al Harachamim, Yastireim B'Sidq Afav L'Olamim, Utzror B'Tzror Chaim Et Nishmatam, Adonai Hu Nachalatam, V'yanuchu B'Shalom Al Mishkavam, V'nomar Amen. Fully compassionate God on high, to our 6 million brothers and sisters murdered because they were Jews, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. We remain standing for Kaddish Yom HaShoah, the Shoah Kaddish written by Eli Wiesel. After each line, we have a camp or concentration camp or work camp. I'll say the Hebrew and we'll join together in the English. Yit Gadal, Auschwitz, V'yit Kadash, Lodz, Shemei Rabbah, Ponar, Bi'alma Divarach Hirutei, Babi Yar, V'yamlich Malchutei, Medanek, B'chayechon Uv'yomechon, Birkenau, Uv'chayedekol Beit Yisrael, Kovno, Bagalau Vizman Kariv, Janauska, V'yimru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mivarach La'alam U'amei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach to Riesenstadt. V'yitpa'ar v'yitramam, Buchenwald. V'yitnaseh v'yithadar, Treblinka. V'yitale v'yithalal, Vilna. Shemei de Kudisha Barichu, Bergen-Belsen. La'ela, Mauthausen. Min kol birchata v'shirata, Dachau. Tushbechata v'nechemata, Minsk. Da'amiran bi'alma, Warsaw. V'imru. Amen. Together. Yehi shlama rabba min shemayim, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. May be seated. I was a cantor long before I became a rabbi, and I know about the power of music. Music to teach us, music to awaken our souls in joy on holidays and Shabbatot, but that music holds a way of reaching us that words simply fail. And so this afternoon, I thought it would be appropriate to share with you a presentation about music of the Shoah. This is just a small sliver. This is just a taste, a tiny little bit of the vast archives and resources of music that took place during these terrible years, the years of the war on the Jews. But yet I hope we can walk away with new insights, a new understanding, and a connection to those who sang these songs. And by hearing their voices and reading and singing their words, I pray that we all keep their memories alive. So it's called Yes, We Sang. Let's go on to the first page. So what was the role of music during the Holocaust? It sounds simple, but as you'll see, it's really not. The scope of musical life under Nazi internment was a remarkable demonstration of the integral role culture can play in constructing communal meaning and identity, particularly in times of crisis. And this is by Shirley Gilbert, who wrote a wonderful book called Music of the Holocaust. And one thing she warns us about that I took with me into other Holocaust studies is what's called a consoling story. We want to tell consoling stories. We want to tell stories of rescuers. We want to tell stories of heroism. We want to give meaning sometimes where meaning can't be found. Look at Hollywood. Look what Hollywood does. It's all survivors, you know. So we have to be very aware of this concept of spiritual resistance that has taken over the discussions around Holocaust music, that this was a form of spiritual resistance, and it has a meaning, and it has a consoling narrative, and we can all feel better about the Holocaust because of that. No, we can't. So the consoling story that's been constructed of music in the Holocaust is that music is not only a channel through which Nazism's victims derived emotional comfort and support, but also as a life-affirming survival mechanism through which they asserted solidarity in the face of persecution, the will to live, and the power of the human spirit. And that may be something you have heard about singing in the Holocaust, but we're going to try and go one level deeper than that today. Next slide. So why was it assumed that music was inviolable by social forces, or that it was immune to the politicization and corruption that infiltrated so many aspects of life at that time, especially in the ghettos and camps where the perverted moral codes and deeds of the regime had their most concentrated expression? Nothing could escape contamination. We want to think that music is pure. Music is elevated. Music lifts us up. Music is from a different sphere. But even music became contaminated with the evil and perversity of the Nazis. Next page. So, what can we learn from these songs? Quite a bit. They are texts which originate from the time itself, and they stand with diaries and a few chronicles as important documents which were created in real time. These are not people looking back 50 years. This was at the moment. They give us the perspective of the victims as things were happening, the shifts, the uncertainties, and the daily realities. They do not give us condolence, but they can give us a vision of a captive life and insight into social and political factors. And there were all kinds of music in all different kinds of places by different groups. But music was multifaceted, and it very much depended on wealth, power, language, and class. And never forget number 5. Music was mobilized by the Nazis for their ends. Even music in the ghetto, that was permitted and allowed because it kept people calm and relaxed in the ghettos. They had symphonies, they had choirs. Why? Why were these allowed? To keep the populace calm and relax the inmates. Next page. We can see that the singers and writers are human beings, not mythical. And the music in its time did give them hope and meaning and strength, especially in the ghettos in its time. And many of the songs, especially when we get to the partisan songs, were heroic and uplifting. But is that because people were feeling that way? Or more likely that they needed encouragement, so they wrote encouraging songs even though they themselves were despondent. As things got worse, the music got more and more hopeful. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the people were hopeful. And finally, that culture can make a communal meaning in time of crisis, but we need to look back with clear eyes and not cultural cliches. Okay, moving on. Scholar Lawrence Langer, a critic of this consoling redemptive discourse, focuses on what he calls verbal fences, what we, the post-war generation, construct between atrocity and what we are psychologically prepared to confront. We want to reduce indeterminacy into something coherent. We rebel against the idea that the suffering could have signified nothing, and nothing is left but a gaping black hole. We look for justifications, including romanticizing Holocaust music to make events easier to assimilate. So I'm challenging you to kind of let go of some of the Hollywood versions of the Holocaust. Next slide. Oh, if we go on using a discourse of consolation about an event for which there is none, it's partly because old habits of language cling like burrs to the pelts of civilization, and partly because no full-fledged discourse of ruin, more appropriate to our hapless times, has yet emerged. A discourse of ruin may sound frightening, but only if we mistake it for a statement about the permanent defeat of hope. It simply asks us to be honest about the nature of the ruin, which means confessing that the Holocaust was not an illness from which its patients could be cured, or a trauma from which its victims recovered. Next slide. So where do we find songs? In the ghettos, songs describing first-person experience, that's where we find the majority of songs. In the camps, there weren't as many songs because by the time they got to the camps, they had nowhere to write. They were weak. They were barely surviving minute to minute. So the camp songs are much fewer. Of course, we have the partisan resistance songs, and we have songs post-Shoah, memory songs. So quite a few places. How did music function in different situations? In the ghetto, what I've learned is there were stratifications and classes. And this I did not know until I began this research. In the ghetto, there were people who were very well off. The police and the Judenrat, the Jewish police force, And the members and their families and wealthy people, they could afford to bribe and get food. They could bribe people to bring things in. They could bribe the Judenrat to maybe give them a little more room in their house. So there were people who were, as we'll see, going to cafes. They had plenty of food. And then there were the powerless. And they died in the streets of starvation, while others ate in cafes and tangos were played. Musical activities in the ghetto. Music was mostly based on pre-war favorite songs. That's a long-standing Yiddish tradition, is to take a pop song or a folk song and rewrite the words to the moment. And the typical themes were, of course, hunger, oppression, but there were also lullabies and even love songs written in the ghetto. And there were cafes and cabarets in the ghettos that were open to the wealthy and powerful ruling class. There actually was decadence in the ghettos. It's hard to believe, but the scholars bear this out. This first song is a wonderful representation of the complicated social landscape of Warsaw. It's a satire on moral decline and corruption within the Warsaw ghetto. It's also a song of anger and despair. Adrienne Cooper, a very famous Yiddishist, sings this, and she mixes in English and Yiddish into this. There's also a little bad language, so I apologize in advance to our Torah scrolls. It's not exactly what I would love to bring to a sanctuary, but in our spirit of teaching and learning, we're going to let that pass. So this is Moez, which means money, money, from Adrienne Cooper, if we can play that.
Hast du nicht gemusst, sie ist zu dir erklang. Gib mir weg die Bonne und sag da guten Tag, weil Moes ist die beste Sache. Now the Jew government here in ghetto land, they oppress us with heavy, heavy taxes, but in return, they kindly give us all the bread and saccharin we can stomach. I tell you, money, 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 honey, money is the root of all things. Die jiddische Gemeine nährt von uns Danine und gibt uns doch zu essen, beruhigt mit Sacharine, aber Moes ist die beste Sache. I ate sweet, sweet oranges, but these days, it's the lice and the bed bugs that eat on me, cause money, 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 honey, money is the only thing. In der Heim hab ich gegessen Pomeranzen, heint essen mich ruf, der Leis mit dem Wanzen war Moes, Moes ist die erste Sache. If you don't have money, you are out of luck. If you don't have money, you are fucked, cause money in this place is the only thing. You say you lack money, you don't have any. Now I have just the plan for you. You find yourself a hole and crawl in there, cause money, 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 honey, money is the only thing. Moes is the bestest of, Moes ist die erste Sache. Hast du nicht gemusst, hab ich von dir ein Plan, gewinn sich ein Loch und krieg heran. Moes ist die erste Sache.
And I bet you didn't think Holocaust songs sounded like that. You know, they're all supposed to be kind of Hasidic folk songs. This is taking the pop sound of the day, right? Kind of these were the popular music, and making that into a social commentary about the stratification of the ghetto. And I love her voice, and I love the way she brings that across. But there's an edge to it. You know, there's an edge to that and an anger to that song that I can imagine being sung in the ghetto itself. And we're going to move on to another ghetto song. Music on the streets was a big part of the ghetto, but maybe not in the way that you think. And this goes into the infection of the Nazis. They used music to humiliate and punish. And they created sadistic games where random people were made to play and dance for hours until they collapsed. And they also had children as beggars, and they would play music to try to get a few scraps to eat. And this is a child, and his face haunts me. They're trying to play music to try to get a little bit of bread and maybe stay alive for one more night. This is the Lodz ghetto. So the text of the music from the ghettos we have left are important because, again, remember, these are first-person accounts of what happened in real time. They often are not defiant, and they often are not hopeful. People knew what was happening. People were not writing hopeful songs in the ghetto as the liquidations and the starvation was all around them. This is a very famous song called Rivka la Dishabastika by a composer named Pesach Kaplan. He was born in 1870 in the shtetl of Stavisk near Bialystok. His father was a cantor and a shochet who was forced to travel from town to town to make a living. Pesach would travel with him. He would be taught in different yeshivas until his family finally arrived in Warsaw. In Warsaw, Kaplan, with the help of Talmudic study, was introduced to the Haskalah, that's the Enlightenment, Hebrew language and literature. Kaplan moved to Bialystok in 1888 and got involved in Jewish community affairs as a teacher, journalist, a writer, and much more. In July 1941, Nazis occupied Bialystok, and more than 5,000 Jews were eliminated in the first few weeks. Nazis called this the cleansing action. Pesach Kaplan died at the age of 73 in the Bialystok ghetto, having witnessed the beginning liquidation of the ghetto in February of 1943. Before his death, in response to the action of July 1941, Pesach wrote his moving song Rivka la Dishabastika, where he expressed both the pain and hope of the wives and children whose husbands had been taken away on a Shabbos and never returned. This is sung by the famous Israeli singer Chava Alberstein.
Dreht vor dem zu, vor dem Flecht zu neu verstrich. Oi, du geht auf Finstere, du ist schön zu lang, und das Herz so verklebt, tut dir so weh. Sherina
This is a fascinating song called Rumkowski Chaim. Does anybody know who Chaim Rumkowski was? You're going to find out. Yes, Michael knows. It's a bitter song of protest, so we get to the next slide. Chaim Rumkowski was the head of the Judenrat for the Lodz ghetto. His policy was to cooperate with the Nazi regime, giving them the weakest to supposedly save the strongest. He wanted an efficient and well-run ghetto. He was asked to provide the Nazis with 20,000 children, old and sick and weak people, on September 5th, 1942, and he did so. 60,000 died in the Lodz ghetto, and 130,000 were deported and died in the camps. It was the last ghetto to remain in Poland. So in a way, his plan might have worked had the war ended more quickly. There are many moral arguments about what he did or didn't do. Was he right to try to save some Jews? Accounts of his end are that he was beaten to death by inmates when he arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau. And another legend is that he was burned alive in the crematoria by fellow Jews. And this is a song that we're going to hear written by Jankiel Hershkovitz. Jankiel Hershkovitz, a tailor with a gift for lyric writing, chronicled life in the Lodz ghetto in a series of ballads that earned him fame and needed income as Yankala the street singer. Hershkowitz's irreverent wit and love of wordplay are evident in his best-known song, Rumkowski Chaim, a broadside aimed at the ghetto's dictatorial chairman, Chaim Rumkowski. The title puns on Rumkowski's first name, which ironically means life in Hebrew. In the summer of 1944, Hershkowitz was deported first to Auschwitz, then to a labor camp in Braunschweig, Germany, from which he was liberated in 1945. After the war, he returned to Lodz, where he worked at a variety of jobs and actively participated in the cultural affairs of the Jewish community. Hershkowitz was deeply anguished by the mass exodus of Jews from Poland following the anti-Semitic purges that began in 1968, about which very few people know. Increasingly isolated and insecure, yet finally unwilling to join his friends in immigration, the 61-year-old Hershkowitz ended his own life on March 25th, 1972. And this is his song sung by a survivor. Jews are blessed with Chaim, life unto death, Chaim from the house of life. Rumkowski Chaim, with his great miracle, he performs miracles every day, enough to make you cry Gewalt. Everyone's asking different questions, but Chaim says it's just fine. Do we have the audio on this to play as well? Our Chaim is great. He gives us bran, barley, manna. In times gone by, Jews ate manna. We can scroll that up. In the desert, today every wife is eating her own man. Rumkowski Chaim thought it through well, worked hard by day and night. He created a ghetto with a diet and cries, Oi Gewalt, that he is right. Do we have the performance as well of a survivor? Go scroll back up. There's a link to that at the bottom of the page. It's go up. That's one. They had another one. If you go scroll up, go back to the page that it's on. Back to the slide. From the Fortunoff archives at the bottom here. It's not working. Okay.
stoi. Ein Weizmann hat gesagt, will die in Palästina haben. Sei geheißen, Acker seien, sei der Ritti begraben. Aber in der Reihe nur kommt die Chaim, geht es jeden Tod schreien. Eine Maschke treu, in zweiten Maschke her, mehr mit Pfarreien, moje tiefen Brett. Der letzte Chaim, der Beisa Chaim, hat den Malchem auf bis da Geschäft gemacht. Sollen sie stellen mein Ding was mehr, sollen sie stellen mein Tod bei Nacht. Als de Malchem moet je nemen, die Arbeit schnell, macht den Geberin, zwei Jahrtel, macht es Quint, macht es Git, macht die ganze Welt sprachen mit. Weil es in der Chaim, geht ins Jaim, geht ins Rauchen, geht ins Wein. Zeiten Sonne mit der gegessen Mann, ein bisschen jeder weiter Mann. Drum kommt die Chaim, hat es getracht, die Arbeit schwer weiter bei Nacht. Je macht ein Ghetto in der Dieta, schreit gewalt, da ist Gera. Immer wenn es so gewesen ist, das sogar heißer, geht zum Koski in der Gas, es ist der Holistier Käse. Eine Anzukoje hinten am Rillen, Polizei, ja in der Wacht. Jetzt zu der Kuh, in der Käsergrube, leben soll der ganze in der Tür, weil es in der Chaim, geht ins Jaim, geht ins Oben, geht ins Wein. Zeiten haben wir mit der Lieben gegessen, Mann, ein Dächer jeder weiter Mann. Drum kostet die Chaim und gibt die Pracht, ja, beschwere bei der Weihnacht. Gemacht an jeder, einer jeder, schreit gewalt, da ist Gera. In der Stein, der Himmel ist der Fadiges Tapen, die jeder macht seine Brüder, versorgt in der Pape. Macht nicht immer jeden Tag der Säuge und die Schreie, oi, oi, oi. Jeder wird nicht, hat weite Schaue, oi. So der Chaim, es geht da so. Weil es in der Chaim, geht ins Jaim, geht ins Ofen, geht ins Wein. Zeigt es Sonne in der Mitte gegessen, Mann. Ein Dächer jeder weiter Mann. Drum kommt die Chaim und ist getracht. Die Arbeit schwer weiter bei Nacht. Die Macht vergessen in der Dieta. Schreit gewalt, da ist Gera.
What's amazing is that the survivors remember these songs decades after. These were sung in the ghettos, and then what would happen is the music would go ghetto to ghetto. Somehow it would go from place to place and become something that is sung throughout what was left of the Jewish community. Next slide. So now we get to music of the camps, which is very small. From May 1942 to August 1943, more than 10,000 Jews were killed daily in Treblinka. It was called the Hell of Hells, which some thought even overshadowed Auschwitz and Birkenau in brutality and murder. There were only 70 survivors of Treblinka. And by the time it was dismantled, 925,000 Jews were murdered there. And so I'd like to share There Lies Treblinka, also known as Cry, My Heart Cry. And there's many, many variants of this song. This is one remembered one way by one survivor. You may, if you research this or you want to look up more, there are very many variants to this. And this is called Schrei, Herzela Schrei. It comes from the Fortunoff archives. In the post-war period, researchers went with recording equipment and recorded these survivors singing these songs. And Zissel Slepovich, who's coming at the end of August, works with Fortunoff setting these songs to music. So if we can get to this next section, we have a survivor singing. Let's see if we can find it. I think if you scroll up, he should be there.
Nicht weit ist der Umschlagplatz verleiht, wie man stippt sich in der Brei zu die Waggonen.
Yeah, go up.
Dort hört man ein Geschrei,
No, go down. Yeah.
wie ein Kind schreit zu einer Mama. Wir lassen mich allein, wollen wir gehen
No, scroll up,
zusammen.
scroll up.
Die Polizei, sei haben geheißen, schnelle Gei, du wirst nicht leiden mehr kein Neut, du wirst bekommen 3 Bräut. Sei haben nicht gewiss, als gehen auf a schnellen Teut. Treblinke Doll, hau jeder geht Doll.
Go up.
Ich tu die Doll, man kann nicht reiten mehr kein Wort. Das Kind dahin verbleibt schon Doll, dort in Treblinke. Das Herz tut weh, wenn man sich nur der Mannen. In Tate Mama, kein Treblinke Sommer. Schweig, Herz alle schweig, Herz alle so dich durch, als du bist da. Schwestern, Brüder, Tate, Mama, alle gehen zusammen, alle gehen zu versammeln, weil du bist da. Schweig, Herz alle schweig, Herz alle so dich durch, als du bist da.
Right, so there are these amazing recordings, and everybody has to come to these artist in residence at the end of August that we're doing with the center. Okay, next. This second song is sung by a German guard. Prisoners were often required to take part in a kind of musical torture, and every camp had a camp song. I bet you did not know that. One survivor, Eric Goodman of Sachsenhausen, wrote, "Late in the evening, when we were already tired and longed for the little bit of rest that remained for us in the day, we were made out of pure abuse to remain standing in the courtyard and to sing continuously into the depths of the night. The same happened when now and then someone tried to escape. Then the sirens howled eerily through the night until the victims had been seized. But in the meantime, all the prisoners had to remain standing in the big square without food, without pause to rest, and they had to sing. During this singing, many perished, exhausted." Now, this is sung by war criminal and Treblinka guard Franz Suschamel. And I want you to it's very short, and I want you to listen closely to his final words. I have seen this many, many times, and it never fails to give me chills.
Festig Schritt und Tritt und der Blick geradeaus. Immer fest und fest an die Welt geschaut. Marschieren Kommandos zur Arbeit. Für uns die Zeit nur Treblinka, da es unser Schicksal ist. Haben wir uns auf Treblinka eingestellt in kurzer Frist. Wir kennen nur das Wort der Kommandanten und nur Gehorsamkeit und Pflicht. Wir wollen weiter leisten, bis das kleine Glück uns einmal winkt. Sind Sie zufrieden? Das ist ein Original, ich kann kein Jude heute mehr.
No Jews know that today because the Jews of Treblinka were murdered. The legend of Ani Ma'amin. Many of us do know this song. We could go to the next slide. This song officially is titled the Warschauer Ghetto Lied von Frommer Jiden. That already gives you a little bit of from, which is the religious Jews, the Warsaw Ghetto song of religious Jews. They had their own melodies. Better known by Ani Ma'amin, was sung by religious Jews during the war and gathered by the great musicologist Shmerke Kaczorzinski after the war. Its birth lies in legends. It takes its word from Maimonides' 13 Articles of Faith and declares a certainty of ultimate redemption. Here is the story, if you've never heard it. Azriel David Fastad was a Moditzer Chassid, known for his beautiful voice, a chazan and a composer of Hasidic tunes before World War II. Although the Moditzer Rebbe had managed to escape Poland before the Holocaust, arriving in New York 1940, Azriel David Fastad was not so lucky. In 1942, he was put on a train to Treblinka along with hundreds of other Jews. While on the train, he composed a melody for the words of the 12th Anima Amin. Anima Amin be'emunah shlema beviat HaMashiach ve'af al pi sheyitmamea im kol zeh achaka lo b'chol yom sheyavo. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Mashiach, and even though he may delay, nevertheless, I wait for him each day to arrive. This is actually something that all Jews are supposed to do. Every day we wait for Mashiach. Azriel David began singing the song, at first quietly and then with his full voice. Soon everyone on the train was singing the moving, haunting melody with him as they were transformed from human wreckage into beacons of hope and faith. After some time had passed, they sung the melody many times. Azriel David asked for silence and announced he would give half of his heavenly reward to anyone who would deliver this new melody to his master, the Moditzer Rebbe in New York. The idea seemed fanciful and far-fetched. How would any of them, prisoners on a locked train to a death camp, manage to get Anima Amin to New York? Nevertheless, although the train was locked from the outside, 2 young boys still managed to escape off the train through a gap in the roof of one of the carriages. One was killed falling from the train, but the other eventually made it to New York, where he delivered the melody to the Moditzer rabbi. The Rebbe was deeply moved by the story of the melody and the story of its composition, and told his followers this: with this tune, they went to the gas chambers. With this tune, we will march to greet Mashiach. And this is sung by a series of cantors at an anniversary taking place in Auschwitz, if we have the video for that. March of the Living, which some of you have been on and many of you know about.
קראו להם דנטיסטים. הם הודו מארגזים עד לבוטן, עם 3-4 דנטיסטים עם קערה, מים, ואני נעצרתי, הוא פתח את הפה, את החיים שלו, וחיפש ורוצים את שמן הזהב או משהו אחר. וככה שהלכנו.
Could we turn off that other words? Many of us have heard and do know that song that is typically sung at memorials and is much more a song sung by the religious community. Composing songs in the camp was impossible for most, and there was forced singing, but voluntary singing was almost impossible because it can only exist with several factors: measure of free time, stable condition of the prisoners, leniency of the SS and functionaries. But they were faced with constant brutality, hard labor, and fear of death of many of the inmates were so depleted as to be unable to engage in anything beyond the pure struggle for survival. One song of the camps that survived and was recorded again by that Kazarczynski ethnomusicologist was a Polish song written by an unknown 12-year-old Jewish girl in Auschwitz, Der Tango von Auschwitzischen, the Auschwitz Tango. The song mourned the lack of music in the camp, but expressed hope the song would once again uplift the prisoners. This song lacks the anger and ferocity of many Polish songs. The Yiddish songs that came out of the camps were characterized by melancholy, nostalgia, and deep loss, but did not confront the horrors of the camp in the explicit manner of some of their counterparts. This song captures a longing for the past. And I just want to give a warning, there is a use of the word Negro in Yiddish, which was considered polite and not offensive at that time period, but we know that it is now. So I apologize for that use. It is of its time period and is part of this song in a historical setting. And it's an incredible performance that you're about to see by Ute Lemper in her Songs for Eternity concert. You can find the whole concert on YouTube. She was asked to do this concert on January 25th, 2015, the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and she is an incredible performer in this. She melds the English and the Yiddish as well. And another thing that's interesting, again, a modern style of music, a tango. You wouldn't think tango and Auschwitz would work in the same sentence. But that's the music they knew. That was the popular music of the day.
We loved to dance tangos and foxtrot. We loved to dance and go round and round and round with crazy heads. Our hearts wanted to fall in love and enjoy their life. Now, we write music about the life behind the barbed wire. Our slave tango under the stick of the whipper. Our slave tango in the Auschwitz camp. Steel spears behind those beast guards. Oh, freedom! Come! Wir haben Tango, Foxtrotten und Melodies, gesungen und getanzt noch vor dem Krieg. Die zarte Lieder, zerklungene verweht, haben mit Liebe uns den Kopf verwiegt. Und ich, Molchome, keiner singt keine Lieder von jenen jungen Jahren in der Stadt. Sing euch von Mädchen an andere Lieder, von Tag und Nacht im Lager hinterdraht. Unser Sklaventango und der Knut der Schläger und das Sklaventango von dem Ostwindschener Lager. Sturmhörne Spitzen von die Wächterkeit. Es ruft die Freiheit und die Zeit, die Freie. Unser Sklaventango und der Knut der Schläger und der Sklaventango von dem Ostwindschener Lager. Sturmhörne Spitzen von die Wächterkeit. Es ruft die Freiheit und die Zeit, die Feier. verdäuft Rimpeln sein Wiedel. Und durch der englende Franzos singen in Nigen, wird von treuer Ferne Trio. Und euch der Polar nimmt tut bei sein Pfeifen, und wird geben vielen Chor der Welt, wenn du's Gesang als ihnen die Herzen, wo's Leuchten von der Treue, wo's sein füllt. Unser Sklaventango und der Knut der Schläger und das Sklaventango von dem Ostwind Schillerlager, stuhlende Spitzen von die Wächterreich, es ruft die Freiheit und die Zeit die Freie. Unser Sklaventango und der Knut der Schläger und das Sklaventango von dem Ostwind Schillerlager, stuhlende Spitzen von die Wächterreich, es ruft die Freiheit und die Zeit die Freie. Und der Sklaventango, der Knut der Schläger, der Sklaventango von dem Ostwind Schillerlager, stohlene Spitzen von die Wächterreich, es ruft die Freiheit und die Zeit die Freie.
Oh, she is incredible. She is absolutely incredible. Okay, that is full translation, but she spoke most of that as we started her piece. If we can go to the next slide. Now we get to the songs of the partisans. Some of them are very famous, some of them you might not know as much. The first one is called Stil die Nacht is ausgesternt, or it's also called the Partisaner Song, was written in the summer of 1942 by Hirsch Glick, a young Jewish prisoner of the Vilnius ghetto, and it's based on a Russian folk melody. It's a love song, with the usual songs about a quiet night and a sky full of stars, but quickly turns to the realities of war. The song is dedicated to a beautiful woman who succeeded in the ambush of a Nazi convoy. The song celebrates Witka Kempner, a Jewish partisan, and her successful attack, sabotage on a German train in the Vilnius sector. It was the first attack on the FPO, by the FPO, an organization of partisans and Jews from the ghetto. Kempner and Itzik Makowitz threw a hand grenade at the convoy, damaging it. Witka went on to be a leader of a reconnaissance group and helped lead prisoners out of Kalis, a camp near Vilna. She was captured, but rather than submit to torture, she escaped them and was shot to death. Snow and frost are mentioned in the text of Poetic License, as the attack actually occurred in the summer of 1942. And the song is known for its celebration of a female partisan, because active fighting and resistance was not a traditional role for women even during the war. Musicologist Ruth Rubin noted that 3 words, Speyer, which is a local word from Vilnius, the Russian revolver, the term refers to the Nagant M 1895, Pistol, the German term for an automatic pistol, and perhaps it was to show the multiculturalism of the region. So this is Still die Nacht ist ausgesternt. Do we have the text in the next slide? Yeah, and then we can play the piece.
Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, and now let's have a flutes. Let's have you on. It feels crude to be an E as well. Yeah, it's really warm and melodic. Trombones can be a B just above there.
Wait a second, there's something else talking. You gotta stop that. There's two things playing. Wait, stop.
Bassoons.
There's two things playing at once. I don't know why, but we can't have that. We just need the one that has the record label. Maybe go back to the link right before and make a fresh link. Okay, if we don't have it, we're just going to move on to the next song. Okay. No, you got it? Okay, go, that's not the translation. Go back to the other slide.
Die Nacht ist ausgestellt und der Frost hat stark gebrannt. Sie gedenkst du, wie ich hab dich gelernt, alten Speier in der Hand. Sie gedenkst du, wie ich hab dich gelernt, alten Speier in der Hand. Am Leid, am Pelzel und am Bett und halt in Hand fest an der Gang. Am Leid mit der Sammeten Bohnen, ich toppen seines Karawan. Am Leid mit der Sammeten Bohnen, ich toppen seines Karawan. Gezielt, geschossen und getroffen, hat ihr Kleininger Pistol erneut auflinken mit Waffen, verhalten hat sie mit den Keul. Erneut auflinken mit Waffen, verhalten hat sie mit den Keul. Vertag vom Walderreis gekrochen, mit Schneegirlanden auf die Haar. Gemutet von Kleiningen mit Sachen, war unser neuen freien Dorf. Gemutet von Kleiningen mit Sachen, war unser neuen freien Dorf.
Just a beautiful song, beautiful imagery, and it's really turning a love song on its head. The beautiful girl is the partisan, is the one stopping the convoy. Okay, next slide. Zog Nit Kain Mol, a lot of people know this one. We're going to sing it together in a minute, also by Hirsch Glick. So I just wanted to share a little bit more with him in the next slide. A young poet, he had a premonition and wrote in 1940, I once dreamed I was the hero of a legend. Vilna, his home, was not yet under occupation. 3 years later, in April 1943, when the news of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising reached the Vilna Ghetto, Hirsch Glick wrote Zognit. Though through this song, he became not only a legend, but a symbol of faith and spiritual defiance. The song had an immediate impact and spread rapidly through the ghetto. People sang it in attics and cellars and underground hideouts. They hummed its tune in the presence of German guards during their labor work. The song spread from Vilna to other ghettos and then to concentration camps. It became a source of new hopes and the hymn of the partisans. Hirsch began to write poetry at 13. At 16, he founded a group of poets called the Young Forest. He had to stop school and begin working as an apprentice to a paper business because his family was so poor. When the Germans came to Vilna, he tried to join the resistance but was thrown into prison. He volunteered to go to a swamp camp called Rezha near Vilna. People volunteered to go there to avoid the harsher camps. He almost died of typhus there. When the camp was dissolved, he returned to the ghetto and prepared for the revolt. When the ghetto was liquidated in 1943, he was taken from camp to camp. In July 1944, he escaped to the forest near Russia and tried to join the partisans there, but he was never heard from again, and it is presumed that he was caught and executed. Next slide. So, Zognit Kainmol is actually on page 531 of your prayer book. We're going to do 2 verses in the Yiddish and 2 verses in the English. So if you can't sing the Yiddish, don't worry. This has become the main song of the partisan historical event, and is sung often at commemorations. Page 531. Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst am letzten Weg, kannst himmeln bleien auf verstanden blauen Tag. Komm in Fleiß, dieser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird der Point und unser Trott, wir seinen da, please rise. Kommen weg nach unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird der Point und unser Trott, wir seinen da. Von grünem Palmenland bis weißem Land von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Bein, mit unser Weh. Und wo gefallen sich, spritzt von unser Blut. Sprotzen weg dort unser Pura, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen sie, spritzt von unser Blut. Sprotzen weg dort unser Pura, unser Mut. You must not say that you know what the final way, because the darkened heavens hide the blue of day. The time we've longed for will at last draw near, and our steps as drums will sound that we are here. The time we've longed for will at last draw near, and our steps as drums will sound that we are here. From land all green with palms to land all white with snow, we now arrive with all our pain and all our woe, where our blood sprayed out and came to touch the land. There our courage and our faith will rise and stand, where our blood sprayed out and came to touch the land. There our courage and our faith will rise and stand. Please be seated. Beautiful. A beautiful tribute. And I imagine them singing this as they prepared for their battles in the ghetto. Finally, we get to the songs of remembrance. After the liberation, Shmerke Kaczynski wrote this song to express the feelings of the survivors trying to make a new beginning after the Shoah. During the war, before he fled to Vilna to be with the partisans, he was part of a paper brigade. This was a group of people in the ghetto whose job was to send valuable Jewish sacred and scientific books to Germany, and he was able with his fellows to hide many volumes at the risk of their lives. The precious books they saved were then brought to YIVO in NYC and Yad Vashem. He survived the war and went to be in Lodz, but after the pogroms, as we have heard, he went with his wife to live in Paris. He eventually moved to Buenos Aires, where he died in a plane crash in 1953. He was responsible for the collection of many ghetto, partisan, and camp songs, and he managed to write many down and was published in 1947. Soll schon kommen is set to a favorite tune of Rav Avraham Kook, the famous mystic and chief rabbi of Jerusalem before the war. The song expresses acceptance of life and life's pleasures despite the sufferings of the past, and it favors optimism and joy that through our songs, even though he's a little delayed, we will bring Mashiach. I think the translation is on the next page, and I'm going to sing this one for you. Soll schon kommen die Geula. Ungesollt auf den Herzen macht man alle Chaim. Ob darum et los nit ruhen, singen mir a Lied. Is nit auch kein bissel Branfen, lo mehr trinken Mayim. Mayim Chaim is doch Chaim, was darf nach der Jid? Soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald. S'is a Dorf und Kol Chayev, seid nit kein Aronim, und von Sindiken Mashiach Gicher kommen wird. Ach du Tatelein Himmel, s'betten bnei Rachmanim, ze Mashiach soll nit kommen, a bissele zu spät. Soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald. Stanzen Bäume in die Wälder, Sterne auf den Himmel, Reb Yisroel der Mechuten dreht sich in der Miet. Es wird sich aufwecken, Mashiach, von den tiefen Drimmel, wenn wird der Herrn unser viele dicke Lied. Soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald. It has been an honor to share these songs with you this afternoon. If there is anyone who would like to share a name of a loved one who perished in the Shoah before we conclude our service and our benediction, You may offer it at this time. Mm. Mhm. Mention my great-grandmother Karolina Cooperman, who perished in the Odessa ghetto, and her memory. Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the world, we have listened tonight not only to songs but to voices, voices that refused to be silenced, voices that carried memory when the world tried to erase it. These were not songs of comfort, they were songs of truth, of hunger, of fear, of longing, of courage in the face of annihilation. And now those voices rest with us. Elie Wiesel taught that those who do not bear witness become complicit in forgetting. Tonight we cannot claim we did not know. Tonight all of us are Adim, witnesses. God of memory, do not let this witnessing fade when we leave this room. Let it live in our words, in our choices, in our refusal to turn away from suffering or from truth. Make us worthy of what we have heard. Make us guardians of memory, carriers of dignity, and defenders of life. May the memory of the 6 million be not only a blessing, but a responsibility. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be a blessing and a charge upon our lives. And let us all say, Amen. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon. Thank you, Tyler, for your beautiful music. Thank you, Davis, for your support in the program and the ongoing work of the center. And that concludes our program this afternoon. Thank you all so much.